I want you to just imagine something with me for a second.
Okay, I'm ready.
Imagine you are sitting exactly where you are right now. Like maybe you're commuting to work, just staring at the bumper of the car in front of you.
Yeah, the usual morning grind.
Right. Or maybe you're at your desk with, I don't know, 3 spreadsheets open.
Eh,
Or you're just standing in your kitchen folding laundry.
sure.
And then suddenly your phone buzzes.
Go.
But it's not an email from your boss. And it's not a notification from some social media app trying to, pull you back into an endless scroll.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, it is a direct message from the highest authority possible in the universe.
Oh, wow. Okay, raising the stakes.
Major stakes. It completely bypasses every screen, every spam filter, every earthly network, and it lands right in the center of your consciousness.
That is intense.
It gets crazier. The message is just one sentence long.
What does it say?
It says, I am coming quickly, and I am bringing your evaluation with me.
Man, that is a completely heart-stopping thought experiment. I mean, it doesn't just interrupt your day. It entirely reorients the architecture of your reality.
Completely reorients it.
Because suddenly the laundry doesn't matter. The spreadsheets just, well, they don't matter at all.
Right. If you truly, in your bones, believed that message had just been delivered to you, how would that change what you do in the next 5 minutes?
Oh, it changes everything.
Exactly. Would you finish typing that mundane email?
Definitely not.
Would you pick up the phone and call your mom? Or would you finally apologize to that person you snapped at this morning?
Yeah, you'd scramble to make things right.
That immediate visceral reaction, that sudden, jarring recalibration of everything that actually matters, that is exactly what we are exploring today on The Deep Dive.
And it is such a fascinating topic.
It really is. Today, we aren't just looking at ancient theology. We are looking at how a viral 2,000-year-old warning is being utilized, and honestly, in some cases, beautifully weaponized, to cut through the absolute noise of modern global chaos.
Yeah, because when you look at how modern believers are interpreting and sharing this stuff, there's this very clear bridge being built
A bridge between what?
between two very different psychological states. So on one side of the cultural spectrum, you have this highly sensationalized, anxiety-driven, end times panic.
Yeah. And you see that all over the internet.
Right. It dominates parts of the web. It's just all fear all the time.
Like a constant state of dread.
Exactly. But then on the other side, if you look closely at the actual source material being circulated, it provides this really fascinating roadmap
A roadmap to what, exactly?
to a deeply grounded sense of personal accountability. It basically takes the ultimate unknown, the end of the world as we know it, and transforms it into profound hope.
I love that. And that's our mission today. We're unpacking this fascinating strategic framework from our sources. It details how to communicate biblical prophecy in the modern age, focusing on these massive themes.
Yeah, themes like the psychology of urgency, active righteousness, and the visual language of hope.
So I want to tell you, the listener, right now, whether you are a massive theology buff, or you are just someone curious about how ancient texts influence modern psychology and media, this exploration of prophetic urgency is going to offer a profound aha moment.
It really is the ultimate psychological pivot.
How so?
Well, we are taking this human tendency,
Actor.
stare anxiously at the horizon, just, waiting for a storm,
Right.
and we are redirecting that energy into looking very closely at our own hands, at our daily habits and our immediate communities.
Wow, okay. Let's jump right into the anatomy of this divine decree.
Let's do it.
The foundational text driving this entire deep dive is Revelation chapter 22, verse 12.
A very famous verse.
Very famous.
Yeah.
The text reads, "And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be."
Such a powerful statement.
It really is. Now, the analysis in our sources emphasizes that this phrase, "I come quickly," is not just a casual statement about a timeline.
No, not at all.
It's an urgent warning designed to create total immediacy. But I want to drill down to that word quickly,
Sure.
because in English, quickly usually implies speed, like a sports car moving fast. But does it mean speed here, or does it mean suddenness?
That is the exact distinction that unlocks the psychological weight of this verse.
Okay, break that down for us.
So in the original Greek of the New Testament, the word often translated as quickly is tachy.
Tacky.
Right. And while it can mean speed in prophetic literature, it heavily connotes suddenness.
Suddenness.
Yeah, it means without delay once the event actually begins. It implies an event that could happen at any moment.
Like catching the unprepared completely off guard.
Precisely.
So it's less about a train that you can see coming slowly from miles away and more about like a lightning strike.
Exactly. And if we look at the psychology of human behavior, you have to realize that human beings are chronic procrastinators.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it comes to existential threats.
Right. If a threat is too abstract or too far in the future, I mean, think about how we handle retirement savings.
Or long-term health.
Yeah, or even climate change. We push it off. We think, oh, I have plenty of time to deal with that later.
Yeah, I'll start running next week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the phrasing, I come quickly, forces a complete collapse of that timeline.
It actually reminds me of Parkinson's law.
Oh, what's that?
It's the idea that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion.
Oh, sure.
Like, if you give someone a month to write a report, it takes them a month. If you give them a day, they magically get it done in a day.
That is so true.
Right. So if the universe gives you an indeterminate amount of time to get your spiritual house in order, you're going to put it off indefinitely.
Because human nature just defaults to apathy.
Exactly. But if the timeline is sudden, if it could literally be today, the work cannot expand. It has to be done right now.
And that is exactly what's happening with this text. Readiness, in the context of this strategy, isn't a task you can just pencil into your digital calendar for next Tuesday.
Right.
It completely removes the illusion of abundant time. It makes readiness a present, non-negotiable necessity.
It collapses the distance between someday and right now.
Yeah. You cannot be complacent if something might happen suddenly. It demands that you operate in a constant, elevated state of readiness.
It's the difference between knowing a guest is coming to visit sometime next year versus knowing their car is pulling into your driveway right this second.
Right. If they're in the driveway, you are frantically throwing the clutter from your living room into a closet.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
We all have. And that urgency removes the luxury of apathy. In terms of modern communication, this strategy is highly effective because it grabs the modern reader's fractured attention span immediately.
Yeah, it forces you to look up from your phone.
Exactly. It promises an impending, massive shift in reality, and it demands an immediate behavioral response.
But, okay, if a message is going to be this urgent, this earth-shattering, the voice delivering it has to be undeniable, right?
Okay.
It can't sound like a casual suggestion from a life coach on some self-help blog.
No, that wouldn't carry anyway.
And that leads us directly into a fascinating tactical choice in the framework we are analyzing from our sources.
The translation choice.
Yes, the authority and the literal weight of the King James Version of the Bible.
Yeah, the strategy puts a massive, deliberate emphasis on using the King James Version, the KJV, to communicate this specific message of prophetic urgency.
Right. They unpack this idea that the KJV holds a special reverence in the broader Christian community.
It really does.
The strategy relies on the fact that the language of the KJV lends this sense of divine decree to the message. It acts as a primary source of authority.
Right, they explicitly don't want to use modern casual translations.
But honestly, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
We live in a world of constant, flashy, modern media. Everything is optimized for readability. We have TikTok vernacular, super casual conversational tones, incredibly simplified language.
That's true. Media is very casual now.
So doesn't 17th century English feel, I don't know, profoundly outdated or alienating?
I can see why you'd think that.
If you want a modern audience to really grasp a life or death urgency, why wouldn't a modernized, super casual translation work better for them?
It is a totally logical question, but the research argues the exact opposite.
Really? Why?
It has to do with how our brains process linguistic registers.
Okay, unpack that.
Think about our modern media environment. It is completely saturated with casual conversational voices.
Right.
Every brand, every influencer, every politician is basically trying to be your best friend.
Yeah, they're always in your comments like, hey, guys.
Exactly. They use casual vernacular to lower your defenses and sell you something.
That makes sense.
So if this prophetic warning was delivered in modern casual English, if it said, hey guys, I'm coming back super soon and I'm bringing your performance review, it would just blend into the endless stream of content we consume every day.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it would sound like a push notification from a food delivery app.
Right, you just swipe it away. The KJV cuts through all of that modern noise precisely because it sounds radically different.
It sounds different.
Yeah, it functions as a massive pattern interrupt.
A pattern interrupt. Okay, I see. So it jolts the brain out of its passive scrolling state.
Yes. It doesn't sound like a news anchor. It doesn't sound like a relatable YouTuber. It sounds like a sovereign decree.
And behold, I come
Uh,
quickly.
Exactly. When you read, and behold, the phrasing, the archaic cadence, it all carries a historical and psychological gravity that modernized versions intentionally smooth over.
Right.
In linguistics, this is about high versus low register.
Okay, what does that mean?
The high register of the KJV grounds the absolute chaos of modern instability in an ancient, unshakable certainty.
Wow, an unshakable certainty.
Yeah, it gives the listener the subconscious feeling that they're not just reading helpful life advice, but that they are receiving a final, authoritative edict from outside of our current time and space.
Okay, taking that a step further, it's kind of like the emergency alert system on a television or radio.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Like, when there is a tornado warning, the broadcast doesn't use a soothing pop song in a friendly voice.
No, it uses that awful screeching tone.
Right, that jarring, horrific, dissonant tone. It sounds mechanical and authoritative specifically to communicate to you that this is not normal programming.
Yes.
The language matches the stakes.
And the stakes here, according to the text, are absolute. The authority of the 1611 translation anchors the emotional response.
Because if the warning is severe, the language has to carry that weight.
Exactly. It commands respect before the conscious mind even fully processes the theology.
Okay, so we have this ancient, unshakable lens. We have the weighted, authoritative language of the KJV.
Right.
But how does a modern believer actually apply that 400-year-old anchor to a push notification about a war breaking out today?
That's where the strategy really gets practical.
Because the framework talks a lot about how these two things intersect. How does this ancient text map onto the erratic, unpredictable, constantly breaking news of the modern world stage?
Well, the material outlines how modern believers bridge the specific text of Revelation to current global events.
Okay.
They do it to create a palpable, living sense of impending change. It is essentially about taking the ancient prophetic text and laying it over the modern geopolitical map.
We see the psychological phenomenon all the time.
Oh, constantly.
There is this deep human tendency to look at global instability, shifting social fabrics, political realignments, natural disasters, and view them as literal signs of the times.
Yeah, humans are pattern-seeking creatures.
We look for narrative in chaos.
We really do.
Yeah.
Now, our sources provide a very specific modern example of this.
Right. And for anyone who doesn't live and breathe Middle Eastern geopolitics, we need to explain what it is.
The sources point to the Abraham Accords.
The Abraham Accords. Okay.
Right, so the Abraham Accords were a series of joint normalization agreements initially brokered in late 2020
And who are they between?
between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, and then expanding later. Historically, Arab states had refused to formally recognize Israel. So these agreements represented a massive, sudden shift in Middle Eastern diplomacy and economic alignment.
And just to be completely clear here, we are neutrally analyzing this.
Yes, entirely neutral.
We are not here to endorse a specific political interpretation of those accords or to take any left-wing or right-wing stance on Middle Eastern politics.
No, we are just looking at the source material.
Right. We just need to analyze how they function within this specific prophetic framework.
Exactly.
The research points out how these specific diplomatic shifts and the rapid pace of global alignment act as a massive catalyst for those who are closely watching KJV prophecy.
Right.
To these watchers, it represents the quick nature of the world stage being set.
When watchers of biblical prophecy see historical geopolitical shifts happening at lightning speed alliances forming that would have been unthinkable a decade ago, it reinforces that Greek concept of tachy.
That suddenness we talked about.
Exactly. It validates the feeling that the gears of human history are suddenly accelerating. The Middle East has always been the focal point of biblical prophecy,
Yeah.
so rapid changes there triggered intense scrutiny.
It's basically like watching pieces move on a global chessboard, but without knowing the final play.
That's a good way to picture it.
But here is where I get hung up.
Okay, what is it?
We see all these alliances shifting. We see the headlines flashing red with wars and rumors of wars.
Yeah.
Is the ultimate goal of biblical prophecy just to make us anxious spectators of this global intrigue?
Just sitting around watching.
Yeah. Are we just supposed to sit back with popcorn, draw complicated charts on whiteboards, and try to guess the next political move?
I'm so glad you asked that.
Yeah.
This brings up an incredibly vital point, and the texts we are analyzing explicitly warn against that very mindset.
Oh, they do?
Yes. The danger here is what we might call the spiritualization of doom scrolling.
The spiritualization of doom scrolling, that is a great phrase.
It's a real issue. The end times is a highly searched, highly sensationalized topic online.
Huge. Millions of views.
It generates those millions of clicks because it preys on our primal fears. But the true goal of recognizing these global signs, according to the framework, is not to breed paranoia
Right.
or to turn people into passive, terrified spectators. The global events, these geopolitical unveilings of prophecy, are meant to act as a gracious alert.
A gracious alert. Okay, explain the mechanism behind that. How does seeing a massive war breakout function as gracious?
It functions as a gracious alert because it is a warning bell. It's signaling that the time to prepare is now, before it is too late.
Oh, I see.
The cognitive mechanism here shouldn't be anxiety, it should be preparedness.
Preparedness.
Right. It's not about deciphering a secret code just to be the smartest person in the room or the most popular voice on an internet forum.
Yeah, just to get likes.
Exactly. It is about recognizing the shifting of a season so that you can change your personal behavior.
Wow.
Staring at the news, letting your cortisol spike, and being paralyzed by terror is the exact opposite of the intended response.
Because if staring at the news isn't the final goal, the required response has to be internal.
Yes.
We have to move from the macro to the micro, from this chaotic global stage to the secret, quiet place of the individual mind.
And that brings us to the natural, required pivot in the source material.
Which is
The biblical mandate to watch and pray.
watch and pray. This is where the theological framework becomes highly actionable, right, and deeply psychological.
It really does. The biblical mandate intricately pairs these two concepts.
Yeah.
They're two sides of the exact same coin.
But they serve entirely different cognitive and spiritual functions.
Let's define them based on our analysis.
Okay, let's do it.
Watching is the outward prophetic focus.
Outward.
Right. It is the act of informing the mind. You're looking at the world with spiritual eyes to recognize impending change, precisely so you are not caught off guard.
So you're looking at the headlines, the cultural shifts, the geopolitical alignments.
Yes, and you are staying mentally alert.
But then there's praying.
Right. If watching informs the mind, praying prepares a heart.
Prepares the heart.
The sources describe this as the crucial pivot from the sensationalism of global news to meaningful, biblically based action.
I was thinking about the human psychology behind this, and the analogy of weather forecasting came to mind.
Oh, lay it on me.
Okay, so watching is kind of like constantly checking the weather radar app on your phone.
Right.
You see this massive, terrifying red and yellow hurricane system moving toward your coastal town.
Yeah, you see the bands of rain.
Right. You know the exact trajectory, you know the wind speed, you are incredibly informed.
Yeah, we're watching.
Exactly. But praying is actually putting your phone down, walking outside, and physically boarding up your windows.
Yes.
It is securing the foundation of your house, because if you only watch the radar, your house still gets completely destroyed.
Because you didn't do anything.
Right. You knew it was coming, you had all the information, but you didn't actually do anything to protect yourself.
That analogy perfectly captures the dynamic. And taking your weather radar analogy a step further, the psychological safety net here is entirely based on the locus of control.
The locus of control. Tell me more about that.
You cannot control the hurricane.
Definitely not.
You cannot control the Abraham Accords. You cannot control global supply chains or wars.
Right.
If you only watch those things, you feel helpless. And helplessness leads to despair.
It's exhausting.
But you can control your own internal spiritual readiness. You can board up your own windows.
Wow.
Praying shifts the believer's brain out of the amygdala's fight-or-flight response, which is triggered by watching the scary news, and moves it into the prefrontal cortex.
Which does what?
That's the area of executive function and calm action. It moves you from being a passive victim of global events to standing at a place of grounded internal accountability.
It takes the massive, terrifying external world and shrinks it down to your own living room.
Beautifully said.
And this internal preparation, this praying, this boarding up of the windows, is the gateway to the actual work that Revelation 22.12 promises will be evaluated.
Yes.
Because, remember the second half of that verse we started with, to give every man according as his work shall be.
Which brings us to perhaps the most complex, historically debated, and fascinating part of this entire framework.
We're diving into the classic theological tension between faith and works.
Right. But we are looking at it specifically through the pressure cooker lens of prophetic urgency.
The analysis provides a very clear distinction to help modern believers navigate this without falling into legalism or panic.
Because that's a real danger.
It states that faith provides the why. Faith is the internal engine.
Right.
It is the deep-seated belief, the anticipation, and the hope of the king's return. Works, on the other hand, provide the what.
They represent the tangible standard by which one is evaluated.
Right. Faith is the blueprint, and works are the actual bricks being laid.
The research dives incredibly deep into the biblical definitions of this work and this righteousness.
Yeah, pulling from 4 very specific verses to build a comprehensive picture.
And we need to look at the psychology and the mechanism behind each one to really grasp what this divine evaluation looks like in practice.
Okay, let's go through them. The first verse they highlight is 1 John 3:7.
Right.
It defines righteousness fundamentally as action. It says, "He that doeth righteousness is righteous."
What is crucial here is the emphasis on the verb, doing.
Doing, not just thinking.
Exactly. Righteousness in this framework is not framed as a passive state of simply believing the right theological concepts in your head.
Right.
It is behavioral activation.
Yeah.
In the context of prophetic urgency, if you genuinely believe the king is returning suddenly, you are actively doing things that align with his kingdom.
You aren't just a philosopher thinking about goodness. You are a practitioner of goodness.
That's it. And the neuroscience of action is relevant here too.
Oh.
Yeah, actually doing something constructive is one of the fastest ways to relieve existential anxiety.
You move your body to calm your mind.
Exactly.
Okay, the second verse they use to define this work is Matthew 6:33. This defines righteousness as priority.
Priority.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. This is deeply relevant to what we were just talking about with doom scrolling.
Absolutely. Think about the mechanism of prioritizing. Amidst all the worldly anxieties, the economic crashes, the political polarization, the mandate is to prioritize the kingdom above the panic.
Above the panic.
It is fundamentally about where you allocate your mental and emotional real estate.
Wow.
If you are entirely consumed by the anxiety of the 24-hour news cycle, your cortisol is constantly spiking, and you are definitely not seeking the kingdom first.
Right, you're seeking the news first.
Prophetic readiness demands a radical reordering of your cognitive priorities. The impending change of the world shouldn't distract you. It should brutally focus you on what is eternal.
Brutally focus you, that is intense.
It is.
Okay, the third piece of this architecture is Psalm 106.3. This verse defines righteousness as consistency. It talks about, "Blessed are they who keep judgment, and he that doeth righteousness at all times."
At all times. This is the psychological safeguard against the frantic start-and-stop morality that people sometimes fall into when they get scared.
What do you mean by start and stop morality?
Think about a college student who ignores the class all semester and then frantically crams the night before the final exam.
Oh, I was that student.
We all were. But that cramming is driven by sheer terror of failing.
Right.
But spiritual readiness isn't about cramming for the apocalypse. It is about a consistent daily habit.
Consistency over canic.
Exactly. If you have built the neural pathways and the spiritual habits to do righteousness at all times, then it genuinely doesn't matter if the sudden return happens today, tomorrow, or in 50 years.
Wow.
You are never caught off guard because your baseline state is readiness.
You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. And the final verse they use is Proverbs 14.34, which shifts from the micro to the macro.
The global scale.
Right. It defines righteousness as national or global integrity. Righteousness exalteth a nation.
This beautiful verse ties the quiet personal work back to the global stage.
How so?
It suggests that the micro actions of individuals doing righteousness in their own homes and communities ripple outward to create stability and exaltation at a national level.
The butterfly effect.
Exactly. The individual's preparation actually impacts the broader culture.
But looking at all of this, this high standard of work, this impending evaluation, the suddenness of the timeline, I have to push back again.
Oh, for it.
If the core message is about an urgent, sudden return of a sovereign king who is going to evaluate your work, isn't there a massive risk that people just act out of pure, unadulterated terror?
Fear-based action.
Yeah, like frantically running around trying to do good works just to avoid divine punishment. That sounds exhausting, unsustainable, and entirely fear-based.
That is a very common and historically destructive reaction. And it is a crucial pitfall that the sources address directly.
Oh, they do?
Yes. The strategy clarifies that this framework utterly fails if it is presented as fear-based labor.
Okay.
The goal is not a terrified populace frantically checking moral boxes to avoid a lightning bolt.
Right.
The stated goal is a life pleasing to God. Repentance in this framework is redefined as personal readiness.
Personal readiness.
Yes, it involves turning away from destructive behaviors and sin, absolutely.
Yeah.
But much more importantly, it is about turning towards something.
Turning toward what?
It is turning toward a profound, promised reward.
Turning toward the reward. That completely shifts the emotional valence from negative to positive.
It really does. It is an active righteousness born of anticipation, not terror.
Give me an example of that.
Think of an Olympic athlete preparing for the games.
Okay.
They wake up at 4 a.m., they push their bodies to the absolute limit, they endure massive pain and strict diets.
Yeah, grueling work.
But they aren't doing that incredibly hard work out of terror of the judges.
Right, they aren't scared of the clipboard.
Exactly. They are doing it out of deep anticipation of the gold medal. They're looking forward to the reward.
Wow.
The work is grueling, but it is ultimately joyful because of what it culminates in.
That reframes the entire concept of accountability.
Doesn't it?
And to make this abstract concept of work, accountability, and readiness even more concrete, the analysis points to the masterful ancient storytelling tools that Jesus actually used to explain it.
The parables.
Yes, this brings us to a trio of parables that serve as the backbone for understanding this mindset.
Jesus frequently used parables to take these massive, cosmic, eschatological truths.
And by eschatological, you just mean the theology concerning the end of the world and final destiny of humanity, right?
Exactly, yes. He took those massive truths and grounded them in highly relatable, everyday reality.
I love that.
The first one highlighted in the sources is the parable of the 10 virgins, found in Matthew chapter 25.
Okay, set the scene for this one. What is the narrative?
In this parable, you have 10 bridesmaids who are tasked with waiting for a bridegroom to arrive for a massive wedding feast.
Okay.
5 of them are wise and bring extra oil for their lamps, and 5 are foolish and bring no extra oil.
So they are all waiting.
Right. The bridegroom is delayed, it gets very late, and they all actually fall asleep.
Okay.
Then suddenly at midnight, the jarring cry goes out.
Mm-hmm.
The bridegroom is here. Go out to meet him.
The sudden return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 5 wise virgins wake up, trim their lamps, and are ready. The 5 foolish virgins realize their lamps are going out, they panic, and they ask to borrow oil from the wise.
And what happens? Do the wise share their oil?
They don't.
Really?
The wise virgins say, no, there might not be enough for both of us. Go buy your own.
Wow.
So while the foolish virgins run off to buy more oil in the middle of the night, the bridegroom arrives. Those who are ready go in with him to the marriage feast, and the door is firmly shut.
Shut tight.
Yes. When the foolish ones finally return and ask to be let in, the bridegroom says, I don't know you.
Wait, so they just let him get locked out?
Yep.
To a modern ear, that sounds incredibly harsh, almost selfish. Why wouldn't they just share the oil?
It sounds harsh until you realize what the oil represents.
Which is?
This parable perfectly highlights the concept of anticipation and the non-transferability of personal readiness.
Non-transferability.
Yes. The suddenness of the bridegroom's midnight arrival is the exact narrative embodiment of the I come quickly warning.
Right.
But the oil signifies internal spiritual readiness, character, and relationship with the divine. The harsh reality the parable exposes is that internal readiness is completely non-transferable.
Oh, I see.
You cannot rely on your parents' faith. You cannot borrow your spouse's moral integrity.
Wow.
You cannot coast on your community's readiness. You must maintain your own internal spiritual lamp. In a highly collective society, it was a radical statement of individual accountability.
That is a sobering thought. You cannot borrow someone else's preparation when the sudden moment arrives.
We really can't.
The second parable the sources use to explain this evaluation is the parable of the talents,
Yes.
which happens immediately after the virgins in Matthew 25. Walk us through this one.
In this narrative, a wealthy master is preparing to go on a long journey. Before he leaves, he entrusts his wealth measured in talents, which were massive sums of money, to 3 of his servants, according to their individual abilities.
Okay.
He gives 5 talents to one, 2 to another, and 1 to the last. Then he leaves.
And what do?
The servant with 5 talents immediately goes to work, trades with them, and doubles his money to 10. The servant with 2 does the same, doubling it to 4.
And the third servant?
The third servant, the one who received a single talent, is paralyzed by fear.
Fear of what?
He believes the master is a hard, unforgiving man. So out of sheer terror of losing the money, he digs a hole in the earth and buries his talent. He does absolutely nothing with it.
Buries it.
Yeah. After a long time, the master returns to settle his accounts. He praises the first two servants, calling them good and faithful, and rewards them with massive authority and joy.
Right.
But when the third servant explains that he hid the money out of fear, the master is furious. He calls him wicked and slothful, takes the single talent away, and severely punishes him.
You know, it is striking to me that the third servant wasn't punished for embezzling the money or spending it on a lavish vacation.
No, he didn't steal it.
He literally gave back exactly what he was given, but he was punished for apathy.
Exactly. If we connect this to our main text from Revelation, this parable directly mirrors the reward according to his work concept.
Right.
The master's sudden return is the divine evaluation. It highlights the stark contrast between diligent stewardship and fear-based complacency.
The fear paralyzed him.
The third servant let fear paralyze him into total inaction. In the context of prophetic urgency, simply burying your faith in a hole, keeping your head down, and safely waiting out the clock is not the work that is rewarded.
Well,
You are expected to actively invest what you have been given, your time, your resources, your specific gifts, into the kingdom, regardless of the chaos in the world.
which leads perfectly into the third and final parable they highlight, the sheep and the goats.
At the very end of Matthew 25,
Yes. If the talents represent our resources, this parable defines the highly tangible, deeply human nature of what that work actually looks like on a Tuesday afternoon.
it really does.
How does this one play out?
This is perhaps the most famous and challenging of the three. It depicts the final judgment where the king sits on his throne and separates all the nations before him, just like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats.
Okay.
He places the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. He then looks at the sheep and welcomes them into the kingdom, saying, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me."
And the people are confused, right? They ask when they ever did those things for the king.
Yes, the righteous have no memory of ever physically serving the king. And the king replies with one of the most profound statements in biblical literature. "Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me."
Wow.
Then he turns to the goats on his left and condemns them, specifically because they did not feed the hungry or clothe the naked or visit the sick.
I am continually struck by how incredibly practical this is.
It is intensely practical.
We are talking about the ultimate cosmic event, the culmination of human history, the apocalypse, the end of the age. And Jesus explains this massive, terrifying concept using oil lamps, financial investments, and visiting someone in a prison cell.
Right.
Why do you think he grounds such an esoteric global prophecy in such exceptionally mundane physical metaphors?
Because it proves, without a shadow of doubt, that the message is fundamentally about daily human living.
Daily living.
Yes, human nature always wants to look up at the clouds for a sign. We want to decode complex numerology or obsess over shifting borders in the Middle East.
We want the end times to be a grand intellectual puzzle about geopolitics.
Exactly. But Jesus brings it right back to the dirt of your everyday life. Prophetic urgency isn't about being an expert in international relations. It's about what you do with your time, your money, and how you treat your most vulnerable neighbor today.
Wow.
The mundane physical world is exactly where the spiritual work actually happens. Radical compassion is the highest form of prophetic readiness.
It takes the incomprehensibly cosmic and makes it deeply, uncomfortably local.
Beautifully put.
It is in your living room, your workplace, your interactions with a homeless stranger on your commute.
Right there in front of you.
So for the person who actually engages in this daily work, the person who maintains their own internal oil, who boldly invests their talents instead of burying them in fear, who feeds the hungry while the rest of the world is spinning in chaos and doom scrolling, what is the culmination of all this effort?
Where does it lead?
Yeah, where does this lead?
This is where the strategic framework we are analyzing shifts the narrative completely. It is the crucial pivot from the urgent warning to the good news.
The good news.
It is about visualizing the literal fulfillment of the promise and the receipt of the ultimate reward.
The sources introduce a very specific concept here. the crown of life.
The crown of life.
This is the glorious manifestation of the reward for those who endure trials, who don't give in to fear, and who remain faithful to the work. It is the prize at the end of a grueling marathon.
Yes.
And what is fascinating from a media perspective is that the framework details a very specific visual and aesthetic strategy for communicating this hope to a modern audience.
It's brilliant media strategy.
The stated goal is to literally transform fear into beauty.
Aesthetics and visual language are incredibly powerful tools for theological communication, especially online, where people are scrolling rapidly.
All right.
The framework suggests highly specific visual manifestations to counter the usual tropes. Usually when people make content about Revelation or the end times, they use dark, apocalyptic imagery, fire, destruction, crumbling cities.
It looks like a zombie movie.
Exactly. But this strategy advocates for the exact opposite. It suggests majestic, dawning sunrises.
Sunrise.
The sunrise symbolizes the impending change, yes, but it focuses heavily on the warmth and the light of the king's arrival, actively pushing away the long night of darkness.
It also suggests imagery of light breaking aggressively through dark storm clouds.
Yes, a perfect contrast.
A perfect visual contrast between the world's chaotic, stormy state and the piercing reality of the believer's hope. And there is a mention of kinetic typography, which, for those who might not know, is just the technical term for animated text that moves and scales to emphasize meaning.
Right.
The strategy suggests using bold, warm, gold kinetic typography, pulsing with words like reward, almost like a steady heartbeat on the screen.
Which is brilliant from a psychological perspective. Visuals entirely dictate our subconscious emotional response before our conscious brain even reads the words.
Exactly. If you were to show me a video of a ticking clock counting down, and you heavily scored it with chaotic, dissonant, screeching music, and you flashed images of war footage and riots, I am going to feel profound dread.
Pure anxiety.
Anxiety, a spike in cortisol. I will feel hopeless. But if you take that exact same ticking clock and you score it with a beautiful swelling orchestral piece, and you show a slow-motion sunrise cresting over a mountain, I feel peace.
You feel hope.
I feel anticipation. I feel like something wonderful is about to happen. Is this visual strategy essentially a psychological reframing of the apocalypse?
Yeah, absolutely is. And from their theological standpoint, it is a vitally necessary one. It realigns the viewer's emotional response with the actual foundational theology of the text.
Wow.
Over the decades, the end times has been hijacked by horror tropes to scare people into church pews.
Yeah, to sell tickets and book.
Exactly. But this strategy takes that highly sensationalized anxiety and reframes it as profound comfort. The literal unveiling of prophecy, which is what the word apocalypse actually means, an unveiling, is not supposed to be a horror movie for the prepared.
It's not.
No, it is the culmination of a multi-millennia rescue mission. The reward, the crown of life, is a testament to personal readiness and enduring love.
That is beautiful.
By visualizing this ancient promise with beauty, warm light, and majestic music, you are reminding the viewer that the climax of human history is not destruction, but ultimate restoration. The king isn't bringing a reign of terror, he is bringing a reward.
It is moving the human heart from dread to dawn. That is such a powerful, optimistic place to land.
It really is.
So let's trace the massive journey we have just taken on this deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We started with this startling, urgent, sudden declaration, bypassing our phones and hitting our souls from Revelation 22.5. I come quickly, and my reward is with me. We explored how the strategic use of the King James Version, with its authoritative high-register sovereign weight, acts as a pattern interrupt to cut right through the casual noise of our modern, frantic lives.
From there, we looked at how modern believers apply this ancient lens to the modern map.
Yes.
Using rapid geopolitical shifts like the Abraham Accords in the Middle East, not as a reason to panic, but as a gracious alert.
A warning bell.
We traced the necessary psychological path from merely watching the terrifying global radar to actually praying and securing our internal houses.
Boarding up those windows.
Exactly. We unpack the deep tension between faith and works, realizing that true anticipation doesn't just sit back in fear.
Right. It results in the active behavioral work of righteousness.
Yes.
It is the difficult daily habit of keeping your internal lamp full, boldly investing your talents, and showing radical compassion to the vulnerable.
And we saw how all of that individual accountability, all of that daily, mundane, incredibly important work culminates in the ultimate, beautiful, visually radiant hope of the crown of life.
I want to bring you, the listener, right back to the very first question we asked at the top of the show.
The 5-minute question.
Yes. We asked how receiving an undeniably urgent message about the future would change your next 5 minutes. This deep dive shows us that true prophetic readiness isn't about hoarding anxiety over tomorrow.
Not at all.
It is about active, purposeful, compassionate living today.
The irony is that anticipating the end of the world should be the very thing that most deeply anchors you in the present moment.
That is the perfect summary. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, whether you are back to those spreadsheets or finishing the laundry.
What is it?
Think about the concept of waiting. Usually in our modern world, waiting implies a passive, frustrating state of doing absolutely nothing until an event occurs.
Like sitting in a waiting room.
You sit in a doctor's waiting room reading a stale magazine. You stand in line at the grocery store. But the ancient concept of prophetic readiness suggests that waiting is actually the most active, engaged, heavily invested state a human being can possibly exist in.
Yeah.
If you truly believe the future is guaranteed and that a beautiful restorative reward is coming quickly, how fiercely does that free you to love, to act, and to work in the present without fear of failure?
That is profound.
Look at the chaotic world around you today. Are you just a terrified spectator of the times, anxiously watching the clock tick down? Or are you a sentinel of your own life, actively, joyfully preparing the way?
It changes absolutely everything about how you step into this exact moment.
It really does. That is all for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us and exploring the profound intersection of ancient words and modern human psychology. Keep questioning, keep preparing, and keep exploring. Until next time.